My name is Steve Rankel, and I'm the founder and CEO of Product 180. I want to ask you a question. How do you avoid the herd instinct? Well, first let's define what the herd instinct is. Have you ever noticed that in your market that just about every company communicates the same exact message to customers or to potential customers? There's something that happens with humans. We really want to make sure we're not missing something. The problem is this, that although that might work in Africa when the wildebeests are running away from the lions, that security is found when they're in the herd. When you sell your product or service and you position it in the market and you describe it to your potential customers, if it sounds exactly the same as your competition, or it sounds similar enough, they're going to look elsewhere because there will be nothing different about you. Oh, well, but we want to compete with the market leader. Well, let's address that. Market leaders can do this because if everyone sounds just like them, all things being equal, plus or minus price, people will spend more money with the market leader and they'll choose the market leader for a very specific reason. Insurance. You ever hear the statement, nobody ever got fired for buying IBM? 10, 20 years ago when IBM was not innovating at all in terms of its computers, and they were under a massive onslaught from the brand new PC manufacturers. I had a colleague of mine who was a consultant at a very, very large company. This is an industrial equipment manufacturer that you all have heard the name of. And when they went down, when they came to making the decision to buy computer equipment to equip the entire company, they had two vendors, Company X and IBM. And the CIO couldn't decide. In the end, my colleague, who was a senior consultant, said, let's just choose IBM, and they did. Why? Because it was a sure bet. It wasn't because the product was better, it wasn't because the price was better, it was none of that. So market leaders can get away with this. But if you're not a market leader, you can't. You cannot afford to be like the herd and sound like everyone else. I worked with another company that provided services into the CRM space. And interestingly enough, they were very resistant to my help, to getting my help with this, despite the fact that they could get almost no appointments and no traction for their services. Fortunately for us, what happened was a trade show came into the Boston area, which is where this client was located, and the client ended up going to the trade show. After the trade show, I talked to one of the senior people, and they were kind of scratching their head. And they're like, you know, everybody says the exact same thing that we do. And I said, yes, that's what I've been trying to tell you. What makes you different? People, process, technology. What does that even mean? Just because some new company comes in or the market leader says people, process, technology, or insert whatever your market leader says, doesn't mean that you need to copy them. You're not going to miss out. What you need to do to avoid the herd instinct is this. Figure out who your ideal customers are as a company. They're probably slightly different than the big kahuna. Figure out why they bought from you. Go ask them. Why do you buy from us? Why do you stay with us? What's our secret sauce? What makes us different and special? What was the killer value proposition that won your trust? Why did you trust us at all? If I were to ask you to tell me 3 reasons why you would recommend us to somebody else, what would you say? These are all critical questions. If you are going to stand out amid the noise and the confusion in today's market, you've got to differentiate yourself. You've got to avoid the herd instinct, and you've got to get the answers from your customers. Because anything that doesn't come from a customer's mouth is nothing more than an educated guess. Yes, if you're a wildebeest, or if you're an antelope, and you're on the African continent, there is security in the herd. Today, there is none. One more example. Do you remember the Christmas holidays of 2008? After the market craziness, all of a sudden, several retailers said 20% off, 30% off, 40% off. And all of a sudden, within a week or two, if you watched television or you went to a retailer, everyone had a sale. Well, I'm sure some smart person, some smart senior person in one of those retailers, one of the first ones said, you know how we're going to beat our competition? We're going to sell the stuff cheaper. We need a discount. Well, eventually everyone was discounting, and so no one looked different. And it took about a week, maybe 2. Let's be generous. The reality is you've got to compete with things that are unique to you. And price is the worst place for you to do it, because then you truly are eroding your value. Again, Oscar Wilde said, a fool is someone who knows the price of everything but the value of nothing. And changing your price is the easiest thing you can do to act like the herd. In fact, if you're under pricing pressure right now and people are really pushing back on you, yes, it's a tough economic climate, but you really need to ask yourself if you have something that is so special and so unique, and if you're communicating the uniqueness and the results that this product or service can bring them in a way that will convince them to spend money. Because I can tell you this, as a business owner and with my clients, when a client or I am facing a decision and I have 2 options and I'm not sure if the cheaper one is going to do the job and I am absolutely sure the more expensive one will, guess which one I'm going to take? The more expensive one. Why? Because I need to solve a business problem. So, let me ask you a question. If I went to your website, if I look at your marketing materials and I talk to your sales force, do you sound any different than any of your competition at all, other than your price? Do you look different? Do you talk different? Do you offer anything different? If you went in and mined your customer base, I know you would find things that make you different. In this economic climate, you have to avoid the herd instinct at all costs. Those who do will be standing when the smoke clears, and those who don't will just vanish. No one will notice that though, because they will have been part of the herd. And a good chunk of the herd may have disappeared as well. Thanks for listening.